Hey guys, welcome back. We're continuing on Yuri Bezminov. This will be part 6, and let's see where this goes.
Don't rock the boat. Don't get involved. Just sit down, look at your navel, and meditate. And the things, due to some strange logic, due to cosmic vibration, will settle down by themselves. This is exactly what the KGB and Marxist-Leninist propaganda wants from Americans, to distract their opinion, attention, and mental energy from real issues of the United States into a non-issues, into a non-world, non-existent harmony. Obviously, it's more beneficial for the Soviet aggressors to have a bunch of duped Americans than Americans who are self-conscious, healthy, physically fit, and alert to the reality. Maharishi Mahesh Yogi obviously is not on the payroll of the KGB. But whether he knows it or not, he contributes greatly to demoralization of American society. And he's not the only one. There are hundreds of those gurus who come to your country to capitalize on naivete and stupidity of Americans. It's a fashion. It's a fashion to meditate. It's a fashion not to be involved. So obviously, you can see that if KGB were that curious, if they paid my trip to Hardwar, if they assigned me to that strange job, obviously they were very much fascinated. They were convinced that that type of brainwashing is very efficient and instrumental in demoralization of the United States.
Our conversation with Yuri Alexandrovich Bezminov, who is a defector from the Soviet Union, a former propaganda agent for Novosti and the KGB, will continue after this message.
Now we have been our government.
Yeah, right.
This picture shows the part of the building of USSR embassy and my supervisors. On the left is Comrade Mehdi, an Indian communist, and on the right, Comrade Mitrokhin, my supervisors in the secret department of research and counter-propaganda. It has nothing to do with either research or counter-propaganda. Most of the activity of that department was to compile huge volume of information on individuals who were instrumental in creating public opinion. Publishers, editors, journalists, actors, educationalists, professors of political science, members of parliament, representatives of business circles. Most of these people were divided roughly into groups. Those who would toe the Soviet foreign policy, they would be promoted to the positions of power through media and public opinion manipulation. Those who refused the Soviet influence in their own country would be character assassinated or executed physically come revolution. Same way as in the small town of Hue in South Vietnam, several thousands of Vietnamese were executed in one night when the city was captured by Viet Cong for only 2 days. And American CIA could never figure out how could possibly communists know each individual, where he lives, where to get him, and would be arrested in one night, basically in some 4 hours before dawn, put on a van, taken out of the city limits and shot. The answer is very simple. Long before communists occupied the city, there was extensive network of informers, local Vietnamese citizens, who knew absolutely everything about people who are instrumental in public opinion, including barbers and taxi drivers. Everyone who was sympathetic to the United States was executed. Same thing was done under the guidance of the Soviet embassy in Hanoi, and same thing I was doing in New Delhi. To my horror, I discovered that in the files where people were doomed to execution, there were names of pro-Soviet journalists with whom I was personally friendly.
Pro-Soviet?
Yes. They were idealistically minded leftists who made several visits to USSR, and yet the KGB decided that come revolution or drastic changes in political structure of India, they will have to go.
Why is that?
Because they know too much. Simply because, you see, the useful idiots, the leftists who are idealistically believing in the beauty of Soviet socialist or communist or whatever system, When they get disillusioned, they become the worst enemies. That's why my KGB instructors specifically made a point: never bother with leftists. Forget about these political prostitutes. Aim higher. This was my instruction. Try to get into large circulation, established conservative media. Rich, filthy rich movie makers, intellectuals, so-called academic circles. Cynical, egocentric people who can look into your eyes with angelic expression and tell you a lie. These are the most recruitable people, people who lack moral principles, who are either too greedy or too suffer from self-importance. They feel that they matter a lot. These are the people who KGB wanted very much to recruit.
But to eliminate the others, to execute the others, don't they serve some purpose? Wouldn't they be the ones they rely on?
They serve purpose only at the stage of destabilization of a nation. For example, your leftists in United States, all these professors and all these beautiful civil rights defenders, they are instrumental in the process of the subversion only to destabilize the nation. When their job is completed, they are not needed anymore. They know too much. Some of them, when they get disillusioned, when they see that Marxist-Leninists come to power, obviously they get offended. They think that they will come to power. That will never happen, of course. They will be lined up against the wall and shot. But they may turn into the most bitter enemies of Marxist-Leninists when they come to power. And that's what happened in Nicaragua. You remember most of these former Marxist-Leninists were either put to prison or one of them split, and now he's working against Sandinistas. It happened in Grenada when Maurice Bishop was already a Marxist. He was executed by a new Marxist who was more Marxist than this Marxist. Same happened in Afghanistan.
We're seeing that now.
First there was Taraki, he was killed by Amin, then Amin was killed by Babrak Karmal with the help of KGB. Same happened in Bangladesh when Mujibur Rahman, very pro-Soviet leftist, was assassinated by his own Marxist-Leninist military comrades. It's the same pattern everywhere. The moment they serve their purpose, all the useful idiots are either be executed entirely, all the idealistically minded Marxists, or exiled or put in prisons, like in Cuba. Many former Marxists are in Cuba. In prison. So
I'm going to put a pause there. He made a good point, and it's something that there was a transition where entertainment was culturally conservative. And when he was talking back then, it would have been 50s and 60s. Like he was talking about, the Marxist-Leninists, they were coming in from other countries. That's your Jane Fondas, like going on their little tours and doing their thing and bringing it back. So they were what he would call useful idiots. But the Hollywood mainstream wasn't always what it is today, with this extremely far left, propagandized entertainment industry. What do you call it? Clearly that they basically subverted the entertainment component of Hollywood and obviously news. Well, the journalists were already kind of in with them anyways, but losing Hollywood and buying out the quote unquote conservatives that were involved in Hollywood, rotating them into progressives, Marxists, basically showing them that if you marry the government, if they marry the government, there will be better wealth, better monopoly for them. And watching Hollywood rotate, you could see that transition through the 70s, but you really see it take hold in the 90s. Now, what we consider being much more leftists in the 90s, comparatively to the 60s, it was insanely, it went very far. But then just look how much farther the scale is tipped now. Today, they don't pretend that they are conservative. Today, Hollywood openly rebels against anything that is conservative. and actively try to culturally genocide conservatives, whether you're in the entertainment industry, in production itself, or exteriorly trying to remove people, out of society through cultural influences.
Well, Senator Joe McCarthy was having all those hearings, and the McCarthyism, uh, uh, they got put on all of that, looking for, speaking about communists in Hollywood and other areas as well. And even then, the actor Ronald Reagan, who later became our president, testified that, in fact, what McCarthy was saying was accurate about the communist overtake in Hollywood. And that was in the 60s and late 50s, I believe, in the 60s. And they have been extremely effective in that. I mean, I remember in movies in the 60s, leaning, some of them, even the what you would have thought would have been a war movie, right? Wave the American flag, patriotic movie. They became more tainted, especially the ones about the war in Korea. That's where I really saw it starting, and then it went on to Vietnam. As it was hard to find a real good movie about Vietnam, one that was at least patriotic. I mean, John Wayne tried to make one with the Green Berets, and it was pretty corny, but just John Wayne stuff. But they take realism and then they slip communist ideas into that.
Right.
And it was a slow process, but slow and steady. And now, if anybody says, "Oh, you're, McCarthyism," or Joe McCarthy, he's on a witch hunt. Well, he was accurately on a witch hunt, to be honest with you,
Right.
is because there were communists overtaking it, and how the communists fight that is they go, "Oh, it's a witch hunt." It sounds like Hillary Clinton, right?
Yeah.
Immediately attack them that they're making stuff up and that they're persecuting them, when in fact they don't deny that they're a communist.
And one of the things that I find, I mean, it's something I've noticed I've seen for a long time working in the industry myself, but how even after the USSR fell and the KGB lost the majority of its stronghold, the majority of its strength, they would argue that, Putin and, KGB modernly are doing it. I don't think it's at the same level. It may be, but I feel like even with the USSR fall, it already took root. And once the ideology took root, it was a cancer that was going to continue to grow.
Yeah, the true believers didn't all disappear. That's for certain.
Right.
And they changed their name a lot. Communist, progressive. To leftist, whatever. And matter of fact, Hillary Clinton's called herself a progressive and had a number of those on the left. I mean, look at AOC.
Yeah.
And Che Guevara and all that, where people are wearing his shirt and stuff. And really what it was is a communist guerrilla. And but that he's promoted in college by professors and taught as a freedom fighter. But if you fight for Americans' freedom as a patriot, supports the Constitution, then you're some kind of white nationalist or black nationalist if you're black, but some type of terrorist. And anything that defends this country and what it's founded on is a terrorist act in the minds of the communists. And that's how you can tell who's running what, is when they start saying that. The word patriot became a dirty word, a moniker of being some insane white nationalist, if you will. Militia. Clintons did it with the term militias. And they went after the militias and infiltrated them, a lot like what's happened with January 6th and other instances where they tried to infiltrate and it caused laws to be broken, so that they'd have good reason to come down on them with a hammer and arrest them.
What would you recommend for the audience out there, the everyday person, the one that's not trying to get out in the streets or trying to put themselves out there on YouTube, to either call out or to try to rotate the system? What would be a better thing for the people that are watching that maybe don't want to get directly involved, but stuff that they can do to help start ridding the system of this nonsense?
Well, there's a number of things that, one of the most important things to do, I believe, is to read the U.S. Constitution and read your state constitution as well. And it sounds like dry reading, but the U.S. Constitution is pretty light. I mean, there's not a whole lot there. It's not a big read, and that includes the Bill of Rights. But I would also, just as a backdrop for that, a foundation, if you will, is read our Declaration of Independence and see where the mindset of the founding fathers was, at the time, and how their process, because you can see the process that they were following in there. They tried the lawful process until the unlawful government that they were fighting was just so unresponsive to obeying the law that left them no choice but to secede. So I would say that is, and because we hear it, the ignorance of the politicians, intentionally or unintentionally, and or a lot of citizenry, they call America democracy, but we're not a democracy.
Mm-mm.
We're a republic. Article 4, Section 4 of the United States Constitution says that the several states are guaranteed a republican form of government. That's not the party Republican, but that's the form of government. If you don't know what a Republican form of government is, then you need to read up on that. And then what that is we just the people elect electors, if you will, representatives. That's why we have Congress and the Senate to go ahead and do their will. What's happened is the congressmen and or women, same with senators, when they get elected, they seem to immediately forget that they're representing the people of the state they were sent from to Washington. They think that their job is to represent Washington to the people that elected them. And it's really bad with Senate because they're in there for 6 years and they know that they're going to be held harm-free, for quite a while. They can change their tune the last year or so of their before the election, and then all of a sudden they start playing back to the citizenry.
Right.
But I think the education on the Constitution is one of the main things, and just don't believe everything you hear, because there's a lot of corruption going on in our government right now, and even for those who say, well, I think Trump should be investigated, should be arrested. Okay, well, stop and just think if about 10 or 20% of what they're saying about him is not true on the media. Just 10 to 20%. That's not a whole lot. But they're pounding it all as if it is the truth, and
Right.
and what we're being subjected to is brainwashing.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say, do independent research. Shows like what we're putting on, and there's a number of others that are out there going on. I was just watching Cash. I forgot what his whole name was. He was the former, I think, federal. I don't think he might have been a prosecutor, and also a federal public defender, and he's doing a lot on what's been happening illegally within this country by our government.
Yeah. To give before we close out this segment, to give a good example of the propaganda that the media has done, I had a friend that was over just the other night, and he's a younger black guy, and he doesn't claim to believe everything that they tell him. And then we were talking about the January 6th thing, and it was like January 6th versus Black Lives Matter. And he was convinced that hundreds of people had died at January 6th. And I told him one person died. It was one of the protesters.
Was shot, unarmed.
And they were shot unarmed. And he was 100% convinced that what I was saying was wrong. I had to pull up article after article after article after article, including articles of places that he would read that had retracted their original statements, to finally show that he couldn't quite believe, like it was almost like he didn't want to fundamentally see it. And that is absolutely the power of propaganda. When you've been told something and you believe it, and you have been saying something about it to other people, possibly on a soapbox somewhere. And now you find out everything that you were saying, but what you were told is a lie.
It's that the lie, when it's spread through the media, written or on air, if you will, is blasted out there over and over and over again. But when the retraction comes,
it's a little footnote,
very short or very small, and hidden in the back of the show or the back of the paper or magazine, whatever it is, very small, and so the lie stands, because if they get the lie out there enough, is people, that's what they remember,
right?
And unfortunately, they take it as the truth because they're hearing it from some professional, if you will. And the problem is we have professionals that have zero integrity.
Right. And I think that's a good thing for the audience to take away, is read the Constitution. Don't believe anything you hear, really. Don't believe anything you hear. Don't believe
I'll say something, Mac. What they have to read is the first 10 amendments to the U.S. Constitution or the Bill of Rights. That's what the Bill of Rights are.
Yeah.
And it's the protections against illegal search and seizure, and there's a number of things: right to own firearms, or right to free speech. I would challenge anyone to read those 10 amendments to the Constitution that are in the bill, that make up the Bill of Rights, and just look at it. Try to look at it with limit your political bias, either if you're conservative or liberal. Try to limit that, and then just think of what you see in cases that are happening that you've noticed watched a little bit on the news or whatever, and see, or maybe even your personal experience or your friend's personal experience, which one of those is our government not blatantly breaking.
Right. And actually, that would be a fun series. Maybe that's something we can do too. We'll make a video on each of those amendments and go into that in discussion.
I've got some personal experience on a few of them.
Yeah, right. And I think a lot of people have, at different degrees, probably not even realizing that their rights are being violated in a constant stream.
Why are American people afraid of the IRS? Why are the American people afraid of the government in any way? Why should we have to live in fear of the people who we are paying their salaries to enforce the law with justice in mind? As why do we need to be afraid of them? If in fact we're fearful of our government, we've got problems.
Right.
Problems.
Mm-hmm. So on that note, we'll follow up with you guys coming up on part 7. Like and subscribe down below. Shoot us some ideas for other content, and see you guys on the next one.